The smell of grilled chicken and charcoal hung in the summer air as my family gathered in the backyard. Kids were running around, uncles cracking open beers, my sister showing off her new outfit. It was one of those loud, messy family barbecues where laughter floats through the air like music. I was standing by the picnic table, setting down a bowl of pasta salad I'd made, when my mother's voice cut through the chatter. She didn't yell. She didn't even sound angry, just amused, almost smug. "If you disappeared tomorrow," she said with a little smirk, "no one would even notice." Her words landed like a slap I didn't see coming. The laughter around me stumbled into silence, then a few awkward chuckles as relatives shifted in their chairs. Some avoided my eyes. My sister laughed nervously and took a sip of her drink. I felt my throat tighten, but I forced a smile. My hands stayed steady on the serving spoon even though my chest burned. "Good one, Mom," I said lightly, as if it were just another family joke. But inside, something cracked. My name is Claire Matthews. I'm 33 years old. I work in project management. I live here in Ohio, and until that moment, I thought family meant unconditional love. I thought no matter how invisible I felt outside, my own mother would always see me. I smiled that day, but her words buried themselves deep. And what she didn't know was that they lit a fire I could never put out. If you'd asked me before that barbecue what my family life was like, I would have said we were close. That's what I always told people. We had birthdays with balloons taped to the wall, holidays crowded with too much food, and Sunday dinners where my mother insisted we all sit together. From the outside, it looked like we were tight-knit, bound by tradition. But the truth is, my place in that picture was never secure. Growing up, I was the dependable one, the kid who cleaned her room without being asked, who got good grades, who never caused trouble. I thought those things would earn me love. My sister, on the other hand, was the golden child. She didn't have to try as hard, and still, my mother praised her for every small thing. If she sang at a school concert, she was talented. If I brought home a certificate, I was told, that's expected. I carried that pattern into adulthood, convinced that one day my mother would look at me and feel proud. I graduated college, started a stable career in project management, paid my bills on time. I showed up to every family gathering, often the one helping in the kitchen, cleaning up, making sure things ran smoothly. But my efforts rarely drew attention. My presence was assumed, not appreciated. Meanwhile, my mother doted on my sister, telling everyone how stylish, fun, and vibrant she was. I stayed in the background, the quiet achiever, the one who blended into the wallpaper. I told myself it didn't matter, that love isn't about applause, that she cared even if she didn't say it. I clung to that belief, convincing myself I had a solid family foundation. That barbecue proved how wrong I was. After that barbecue, I couldn't shake her words. They replayed in my head at night when I was brushing my teeth, or in the morning when I poured my coffee. If you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice. At first, I told myself it was just a bad joke. But once you hear something like that, you start to see the patterns that were always there. I noticed how, at birthdays, my mother's praise flowed toward my sister for her outfit, her new job, even the way she decorated a cake she hadn't actually baked. When it came to me, the comments were different. "Claire's always the practical one," she'd say. Or, "You know, Claire, steady but not very exciting." Relatives would nod politely, then turn their attention elsewhere. The digs grew sharper once I paid attention. At Thanksgiving, when I brought a homemade pie, Mom chuckled and said, "At least she tries." At Christmas, when I gave thoughtful gifts, she'd smirk. Claire's gifts are always simple, but hey, it's the thought that counts. My cousins laughed along, like it was tradition. I didn't argue. I didn't fight. I just smiled, storing every word like stones in my pocket. On the outside, I stayed quiet. On the inside, I was learning something important. Silence can be more powerful than shouting. And while they dismissed me as invisible, I was building something far more permanent than their shallow praise. I was investing, working late nights, saving for a future none of them knew I was shaping. They flaunted their status, new cars, trips, flashy clothes, but I was building something they couldn't see, something they wouldn't be able to ignore forever. And every smirk, every dismissal was fuel. The moment that sealed everything came a few weeks after the barbecue. I was walking past the kitchen when I heard my mother's voice drifting from the living room. She was talking to my aunt, unaware I was nearby. "Claire?" she said with a laugh. "She'll never be someone. People forget she's even around. Sometimes I think she was just meant to blend into the background." They both laughed. I stood frozen, the words stabbing deeper than I thought possible. It wasn't just a careless comment at a barbecue. This was how she truly saw me: invisible, forgettable, disposable. In that instant, something inside me broke. Not in the way she wanted, not in weakness, but in resolve. I walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, and busied myself with a drink, pretending I hadn't heard a thing. I even smiled when I passed her, the same smile I had worn at the barbecue. On the outside, I stayed calm, but inside, I knew. I could no longer keep clinging to the hope that one day she'd change. One day she'd see me. One day she'd be proud. That day would never come. If she wanted to pretend I didn't exist, fine. But when the world noticed me, it would be for something she could never erase. After that night, I stopped wishing for my mother's approval. I realized her words would never change, but I could. So, I built a plan. At work, I doubled down. I stopped hiding in the background, stopped letting others take credit for my ideas. I spoke up in meetings, volunteered for projects no one else wanted, and stayed late learning skills my coworkers overlooked. Slowly, opportunities opened. A side project led to a promotion. A contact turned into a mentor. My career began to move forward, not because anyone handed me a ladder, but because I carved my own steps. Outside of work, I became meticulous. I built a savings plan, invested carefully, and said no to the flashy things my family bragged about: the vacations, the cars, the designer clothes. I lived lean, quietly stacking bricks of security. At night, I took online courses, learning about entrepreneurship, finance, and leadership. I poured myself into becoming someone no one could dismiss. And while I was building, I let my family keep their illusions. I still smiled at dinners, still played the quiet role, still let them believe I was invisible. They thought I was fading into the background, but really, I was preparing my stage. Her smirk, her dismissal, her laughter, all of it became fuel. I didn't need to shout or argue. My success would be my answer. They wanted me forgotten. Instead, I was writing a story bold enough that even they wouldn't be able to look away. The chance to show them came sooner than I expected. A cousin was getting married, and the whole family gathered for the reception. It was one of those nights where the room glittered with dresses, laughter, and too much champagne. My mother, of course, was in the center of it all, entertaining relatives with her stories, her voice carrying across the table. At one point, she smirked in my direction and said, "Claire's always been the quiet one. You hardly even notice she's there." People chuckled, the same tired laugh that had followed me my entire life. But this time, I didn't just smile and swallow it. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small folder. Inside was a magazine. Spread my face on the page, under the headline, "Rising Innovators, Women Leading the Future of Project Strategy." I placed it on the table, sliding it toward the center where everyone could see. The laughter stopped. Forks paused midair. My aunt leaned closer, eyes widening. My sister blinked in disbelief. And my mother, her smirk faltered for the first time. I looked around the table, calm and steady. "You said once that if I disappeared, no one would notice. Funny thing is, it seems the world already has." The silence was louder than any applause. My mother shifted uncomfortably, trying to wave it off, but the eyes of the room were no longer on her. They were on me. I didn't linger. I stood, smoothed my dress, and excused myself. As I walked away, I felt taller than I ever had before. That night wasn't about revenge through shouting or anger. It was about showing the undeniable truth. I had built something they could never ignore. In the days that followed, no one in my family said much. There were no congratulations, no apologies, just silence. But for once, their silence didn't sting. It spoke louder than words. They couldn't dismiss me anymore, and that was enough. I kept moving forward. My career continued to grow, opportunities opening in ways I once only dreamed of. I traveled for work, led teams, and invested in myself without fear of anyone's judgment. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for recognition from my mother, my sister, or anyone else. I already had it from myself. The truth is, her words at that barbecue had been meant to erase me. If you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice. But she was wrong. People noticed. Not because I shouted the loudest or demanded attention, but because I worked, I endured, and I rose. I stopped needing her approval the moment I realized I had my own. And that's the lesson I carry now. Sometimes the people closest to you will try to make you invisible. Don't waste your life trying to prove them wrong with words. Prove them wrong with who you become. She tried to erase me with a smirk. I turned her words into the reason I'll never be forgotten. If this story touched you, please hit the like button. It helps more people hear these messages. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that being underestimated doesn't mean being invisible. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful first-person stories of justice, resilience, and survival. Every week, I share journeys of people who turned pain into power and silence into strength. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and I'll see you in the next story.